Min-jun Park stood in his apartment overlooking downtown Los Angeles, staring at the city lights that stretched toward the Pacific like fallen stars. His father had purchased this penthouse for $12 million, cash, no mortgage, no paper trail, back when Min-jun was 16. The view was supposed to inspire him, supposed to remind him that this city belonged to them, that every light represented someone paying tribute to the Park family's empire, whether they knew it or not. Instead, it made him feel like a prisoner. His phone buzzed on the marble countertop. He ignored it, knowing it would be one of his father's lieutenants checking in, making sure the Heir was where he was supposed to be, doing what he was supposed to do. His father, Dae-jung Park, had built a criminal organization worth $50 million over 30 years in America. Drugs, weapons, protection rackets, gambling, prostitution. If money moved through it, the Park family took their percentage. Min-jun wanted no part of it. The irony wasn't lost on him that he lived in luxury purchased with blood money while attending UCLA's business school, studying legitimate corporate strategy. His father found it amusing. "You think Fortune 500 companies are different?" Dae-jung had asked him once, scotch in hand, looking out this same window. "They just have lawyers instead of enforcers. The principle is identical: leverage, pressure, control." Min-jun had walked out of that conversation. He'd walked out of dozens like it. His phone buzzed again. This time he checked it. The message was from Keisha. "Late class today, staying until 6 for lab work. Love you, Red Heart." He smiled despite himself, the tension in his shoulders easing. Keisha Williams was everything his world wasn't. Honest, ambitious in ways that didn't involve intimidation, genuinely kind without ulterior motive. They'd met 2 years ago in an economics lecture, where she'd called out a professor's flawed assumption about market behavior with a confidence that made half the class sit up straighter. She was studying pre-med, wanted to be a surgeon, talked about saving lives the way his father talked about controlling territories. She knew who his family was. She demanded the truth 3 months into their relationship, after one of his father's men had appeared at a restaurant where they were eating, whispering urgently in Korean about some crisis that needed Min-jun's attention. He told her everything that night, expecting her to leave. Instead, she'd said, "You're not your father. You get to choose who you become." That was 18 months ago. She'd been choosing him ever since.
Min-jun's phone rang.
Not Keisha this time, his father. "Yes."
Min-jun answered in Korean.
"I'm at Incheon, about to board." His father's voice was crisp, businesslike. "I'll be back Friday." The Chong situation should be resolved by then. The Chong situation. That meant someone had stolen from them, or disrespected them, or failed to pay what was owed. It meant his father was in Seoul to remind certain parties that the Park family's reach extended across the Pacific. It meant someone would probably die. "Understood," Min-jun said, keeping his voice neutral. "Jin-ho is in charge while I'm gone. Any problems, you go to him." Not directly to the men. Jin-ho was his father's right hand, a man who'd been with Dae-jung since the beginning. He was efficient, ruthless, and had never quite hidden his disdain for Min-jun's reluctance to embrace the family business. "I won't need Jin-ho," Min-jun said. "I'm just going to classes and coming home." His father was quiet for a moment. "You're 23 years old. This avoidance cannot continue forever. We've had this conversation, and we'll continue having it until you understand reality. This empire needs an heir who can lead, not a philosopher who objects to getting his hands dirty." Min-jun closed his eyes. "Your flight is boarding. We'll talk when I return." His father hung up. Min-jun set down his phone and poured himself water from the filtered pitcher Keisha had insisted he buy. She didn't drink alcohol and had strong opinions about what he put in his body. She brought organic groceries to his place, left notes on his bathroom mirror about drinking more water, sent him articles about meditation and stress management. She was trying to save him from becoming his father. He loved her for it. His phone buzzed with a text from his study group, asking if he could meet earlier tomorrow to review the corporate finance assignment. He was typing a response when a call came through. Unknown number. Min-jun almost declined it, but something made him answer. "Yes." Heavy breathing on the other end. Then a voice, accented, Russian. Min-jun recognized immediately.
Min-jun Park.
We have something of yours. His blood went cold. Every instinct his father had drilled into him over 23 years suddenly activated, flooding his system with adrenaline so pure he could taste metal. Who is this? You don't need names. You need to listen. The girl, Keisha, very pretty, very scared right now, she's with us. If you want her back in one piece, you'll convince your father to return what he took from Dmitry Volkov. The Volkov Bratva, Russian Mafia, operating out of the eastern parts of LA, constantly pushing against Park territory. There had been tensions for months, small skirmishes, but nothing major. His father had mentioned something about intercepting a Volkov shipment 3 weeks ago, taking $2 million in heroin. Min-jun hadn't paid attention to the details because he never paid attention to his father's business. Now he wished he had. My father is in Korea, Min-jun said, his voice steady despite the panic screaming through his nervous system. He won't be back until Friday. Then you have until Friday to find a solution. If we don't have our merchandise returned by midnight that day, we start sending pieces of your girlfriend back to you. We'll start with fingers. The line went dead. Min-jun stood frozen, phone still pressed to his ear, his entire world narrowing to a single point of burning clarity. They had Keisha. The Volkov Bratva had taken her from campus, from her lab work, from the safe, normal life she was trying to build. They had taken her because of him, because of his family, because of everything he'd been running from his entire life. Something inside him shifted. It wasn't a switch flipping, it was more like a dam breaking, releasing something dark and cold and absolutely ruthless that he'd kept locked away since childhood. His father had trained him since he was 8 years old. Weapons, tactics, psychology, interrogation techniques, strategic planning, hand-to-hand combat. Min-jun had hated every second of it, had rebelled and resisted and told himself he'd never use any of it. Every single lesson suddenly came flooding back with perfect clarity. He pulled up his contacts and called Jin-ho. The lieutenant answered on the second ring.
Min-jun.
The Volkov Bratva kidnapped Keisha Williams 40 minutes ago, Min-jun said, his voice transformed into something that made Jin-ho go silent on the other end. I need everything we have on their current operations. Location of Dmitry Volkov, names and addresses of every lieutenant, safe houses, warehouse locations, transportation routes. I need it in 30 minutes. Your father. My father is unreachable for 18 hours until his flight lands. By then, Keisha will have been in their hands for a full day. I'm not waiting. 30 minutes, Jin-ho. Send it to my encrypted email. He hung up before Jin-ho could argue. Min-jun walked to his bedroom and opened the closet. Behind his legitimate clothes, tailored suits, and casual wear that Keisha had helped him pick out, was a section he never touched. His father had insisted it be there. Just in case, De-young had said. You might reject the business, but the business won't reject you. Inside was a tactical vest, a Glock 19 with 3 magazines, a combat knife, zip ties, a first aid kit, and an encrypted laptop that connected to the Park family's information network. Min-jun pulled everything out, his hands steady, his mind categorizing and prioritizing with a coldness that should have scared him. It didn't. Right now, he needed this coldness. Right now, Keisha needed him to be exactly what he'd spent his whole life refusing to become. His phone buzzed. Email from Jin-ho, faster than the 30 minutes Min-jun had demanded. The subject line read, Everything we have on Volkov operations. Min-jun opened his laptop and downloaded the encrypted files. Locations, surveillance photos, financial records, known associates, patterns of movement. His father's organization was thorough, paranoid, really documenting every detail about their rivals. It was overkill for normal business operations. For what Min-jun was about to do, it was perfect. He studied the information with the analytical skills he developed at UCLA combined with the tactical training his father had forced on him since childhood. The Volkov Bratva operated out of several locations, but their main enforcement headquarters was a warehouse in Vernon, an industrial area south of downtown. That's where they'd take someone they wanted to make an example of, isolated, soundproof, plenty of space for the kind of work they'd threatened to do to Keisha. But there were problems. The warehouse would be heavily guarded. Direct assault would get Keisha killed. He needed leverage, needed to make Dmitry Volkov believe it was in his best interest to hand Keisha over without a fight. That meant Min-jun needed to hurt them first. Hurt them badly enough that returning one civilian girl seemed like a reasonable price for making the pain stop. His phone rang again.
Gino.
"What's your plan?" the lieutenant asked without preamble. "I need 4 men," Min-jun said. "Ones who won't question orders and won't report to my father until after this is over." Jinho was quiet for a long moment. "This isn't your world, Min-jun. You've never. I've had the same training every man in this organization has had. Better, because my father believed I'd inherit everything. I just chose not to use it." Min-jun's voice was ice. "Now I'm choosing differently. 4 men, Jinho. I need them at my apartment in 1 hour. If this goes wrong, then my father comes home to a war with the Volkov Bratva and a dead son. If it goes right, he comes home to a neutralized threat and a rescued civilian. Your call."
Gino exhaled slowly.
1 hour. Min-jun spent that hour transforming his apartment into a command center. He pulled up blueprints of Volkov properties, cross-referenced them with recent surveillance, identified patterns in their security rotations. His mind worked with a precision that surprised him, not because he was capable of it, but because he'd suppressed this part of himself so thoroughly he'd almost forgotten it existed. His father used to say Min-jun had the best strategic mind he'd ever seen. "You think 3 moves ahead naturally," Dae-young had told him once. "Most people have to train themselves to do that. You were born doing it." Min-jun had hated that compliment. Now he weaponized it. The 4 men Jinho sent arrived exactly 1 hour later. Min-jun recognized 3 of them, experienced enforcers who'd been with the organization for years. The 4th was younger, maybe 25, with a kind of hungry look that suggested he was trying to prove himself. "You know who I am?" Min-jun asked them in Korean. They nodded. "You know I've never been active in the business?" They nodded again, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. "That changes tonight. The Volkov Bratva kidnapped someone important to me. We're going to make them regret it." Min-jun pulled up a map on his laptop, turning it so they could see. "This is their distribution hub in Boyle Heights. Small operation, usually 3 guards, handles about 200,000 in product per week. We hit it in 90 minutes, take everything, burn the building. We make it loud. We make it visible. We make Dmitry Volkov understand that taking Keisha was the most expensive mistake his organization has ever made." The older enforcer, a man named Tae-sung, studied the map. "This starts a war." "The war started when they touched her," Min-jun said. "We're just making sure they understand who's going to win." The younger enforcer spoke up. "Your father is in the air somewhere over the Pacific and unreachable. I'm acting head of this family until he lands. Anyone have a problem with that?" No one spoke.
Good.
"Gear up. We leave in 30 minutes. They prepared in silence, checking weapons, reviewing the building layout Min-jun provided, coordinating timing. Min-jun watched them work, seeing the way they moved with practiced efficiency, the way they communicated with minimal words. These were professionals. These were the kind of men his father had built his empire with. For the first time in his life, Min-jun was grateful for them. "Why distribution?" Tae-sung asked quietly as they prepared to leave. "If you want leverage, hit something that hurts more. Take one of Volkov's lieutenants." "Because distribution is immediate pain," Min-jun said. "They lose product, they lose cash flow, they lose face with their suppliers. A kidnapping takes time to cause damage. Destroying 200,000 in heroin causes damage tonight. By morning, Dmitry will be scrambling to explain to very dangerous people why he can't fulfill orders. That's when I call him and offer a solution. Return Keisha untouched, and the attack stop. Keep her, and I dismantle his entire operation piece by piece until there's nothing left." Tae-sung studied Min-jun for a long moment. "You sound like your father." Tae-sung studied Min-jun for a long moment, seeing something in the young man's eyes that hadn't been there a week ago, something cold and calculated and absolutely lethal. If you want to see how Min-jun's rescue plan unfolds, smash that subscribe button because the exchange with Dimitri is about to get intense, and one wrong move means Keisha dies.
Min-jun ist Zeitend.
Tonight, that's a compliment. They took 2 vehicles, nondescript SUVs registered to shell companies that couldn't be traced back to the Park family. Min-jun rode in the lead vehicle, wearing the tactical vest he'd pulled from his closet, the Glock holstered at his hip. His hands were steady. His mind was clear. Everything his father had drilled into him about compartmentalization, about separating emotion from action, about doing what needed to be done regardless of personal feelings, all of it activated like muscle memory. The distribution hub was exactly where the intelligence said it would be, a squat warehouse tucked between a closed auto body shop and an empty lot. 2 men visible outside, smoking cigarettes, AK-47s slung casually over their shoulders. Inside there would be at least 1 more, probably 2, handling the actual product. Tae-sung, you, and Min-ho take the exterior guards, Min-jun said. Quiet. I want them down before they can radio inside. Young-woo, you're with me. We breach 30 seconds after the exterior is clear. Tae-hyun, you're on Overwatch. Anyone comes out that isn't us, you put them down. If you're hooked on this story, drop a comment below telling me if you think Min-jun can actually pull this off, because things are about to get intense. They moved like ghosts. Tae-sung and Min-ho circled around to approach the guards from their blind spots, using the shadows between streetlights. Min-jun watched through a small pair of binoculars, his breathing controlled, his mind tracking multiple variables simultaneously. Wind direction. Ambient noise from the nearby freeway. Sightlines from inside the warehouse. Potential escape routes if this went wrong. The exterior guards went down simultaneously, silenced pistols, making sounds no louder than coughs. They dragged the bodies into the shadows. Clear. Tae-sung's voice came through the earpiece. Min-jun and Young-woo approached the warehouse door. It wasn't locked. Overconfidence, assuming their neighborhood reputation provided sufficient security. Min-jun pulled it open slowly, letting Young-woo slip through first with his weapon raised. Min-jun followed, sweeping left as Young-woo swept right. 3 men inside. 2 counting money at a table covered with bundles of cash and plastic-wrapped bricks of heroin. 1 standing near a door that probably led to an office, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in Russian. They saw Min-jun and Young-woo a second too late. Young-woo fired first, 2 rounds center mass into the man on the phone. Min-jun took the one reaching for a shotgun leaning against the table, dropping him with a shot to the chest. The 3rd man threw his hands up, screaming something in Russian that Min-jun didn't understand and didn't care about. On the floor, Min-jun ordered in English.
Now.
The man complied, face pressed against concrete that stank of chemicals and stale cigarette smoke. Young-woo zip-tied his hands behind his back while Min-jun cleared the office, empty except for a desk covered in more ledgers and a safe that was already open. Package the product, Min-jun said. All of it.
Cash too.
We're taking everything. They worked quickly, filling duffel bags with heroin bricks and cash bundles. The Volkov enforcer on the floor was crying, begging in broken English for them not to kill him. Min-jun crouched next to him. Tell Dmitry Volkov that Min-jun Park took this. Tell him I'm taking everything until he returns what belongs to me. Tell him I'll burn his entire organization to the ground if anything happens to Keisha Williams. Please, I just work here, I don't. Do you understand what I just told you? The man nodded frantically. Good.
Min-jun's Zut.
Young-woo, set the charges. Let's make this memorable. They planted incendiary devices at 3 points throughout the warehouse. Nothing explosive. Min-jun didn't want civilian casualties if the fire spread, but enough to ensure the building would be unsalvageable. They dragged the surviving enforcer outside, left him zip-tied but visible from the street where someone would eventually find him. The duffel bags went into the SUVs. Min-jun took one last look at the warehouse, then pressed the detonator. The incendiaries ignited with a whoosh of superheated air, flames climbing the interior walls within seconds. By the time they were 3 blocks away, the entire structure was engulfed, black smoke rising into the LA night sky like a signal flare, a message that would echo through LA's underworld for years to come. If you're hooked on this story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me if you think Min-jun can actually pull off rescuing Keisha, because what happens next will determine whether he becomes a legend or a cautionary tale. 200,000 in product. Probably another 60,000 in cash. Gone in less than 15 minutes. Min-jun pulled out a burner phone he'd purchased that afternoon and dialed the number that had called him about Keisha. It rang 4 times before someone answered. "Did you enjoy the fire?" Min-jun asked in English. The voice on the other end, not the same person who'd called earlier, was tight with barely controlled rage. "Who is this?" "The man who just cost your organization $260,000 in one night. Tell Dmitry I want to speak with him. Tonight. He has my number." "You just signed your death warrant, you."
Min-jun hung up.
Threats were noise. Action was language these people understood. His phone rang 7 minutes later. Different number, but Min-jun knew who it would be. "Dmitry Volkov, I assume?"
Min-jun answered.
"You made a very stupid mistake tonight." The voice was older, controlled despite the fury underneath. This was someone used to power, used to being feared. "I made a statement," Min-jun corrected. "You have something that belongs to me. I'm taking things that belong to you until we reach an agreement. You think you can wage war against me? Your father maybe, but you? You're a college student playing dress-up. I'm the college student who just destroyed your Boyle Heights operation in less than 20 minutes. How long do you think your other locations will last?" Dmitry laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You're bargaining from weakness. I have your girl. What do I care about one distribution hub?" "You care because your suppliers care. You were supposed to move that product by tomorrow. Now you can't. That's relationships damaged, credibility questioned, people wondering if Dmitry Volkov can be trusted to deliver." Min-jun let that sink in. This was the warning. The next hit will be bigger. And I'll keep escalating until you either return Keisha unharmed, or until there's no Volkov organization left to run. Your choice. "You want her back. Return what your father stole from me. 2 million in product, delivered tomorrow morning." "My father stole it. My father can negotiate its return. Keisha is a civilian. She has nothing to do with our business. You took her to hurt me. I'm hurting you back. This ends one of 2 ways, Dmitry. You let her go and we forget this happened, or I systematically destroy everything you've built in this city. How many properties do you own? How many operations can you afford to lose before your own people start questioning your leadership?" Silence on the other end. "I'll give you until tomorrow night to think about it," Min-jun continued. 8 p.m. "I'll call you then. If Keisha has been harmed in any way, if she is so much as a bruise, I'm going to assume negotiation is off the table. And then we'll see how much your organization is really worth." He hung up before Dmitry could respond. Tae-sung was staring at him from the driver's seat. That was either brilliant or insane. Can it be both?
Min-jun said quietly.
They drove back to his apartment in silence. Min-jun's mind was already 3 moves ahead, planning contingencies, identifying the next targets if Dmitry refused to negotiate. There was a weapons depot in East LA, a money laundering front in Koreatown, a strip club that served as a meeting place for Volkov lieutenants. Each one represented a piece of the organization that could be removed. Each one would make Dmitry weaker, more desperate, more willing to cut his losses. The question was whether Min-jun could do this fast enough. Keisha had been in their hands for 6 hours now. Every minute that passed was a minute she was terrified, surrounded by men who'd threatened to dismember her. Min-jun couldn't let himself think about that too deeply. Couldn't let emotion compromise his strategy. That was lesson number 1 his father had taught him. Feel everything later. Act perfectly now. Back at his apartment, the 4 enforcers helped him count the cash and catalog the seized product. They'd actually taken closer to 300,000 in total value once everything was accounted for. The heroin would go into the Park family's own distribution network. Waste not, want not, as his father would say. The cash would fund operations. What's the next move? Young-woo asked. We wait, Min-jun said. I gave Dmitry until 8 p.m. tomorrow. That gives him time to consult with his people, to run the numbers, to realize that protecting his pride isn't worth destroying his business. If he's smart, he'll agree to release Keisha. And if he's not smart,
Taesung asked, Min-jun's expression hardened.
then we show him what happens when you back a Park into a corner. The men left around 3 in the morning. Min-jun tried to sleep but couldn't. He kept seeing Keisha's smile, hearing her voice, remembering the way she'd looked at him last week when he'd picked her up from her volunteer work at the free clinic. She'd been exhausted, scrub-stained from a 12-hour shift, but glowing with purpose. I helped save someone today, she told him. Actual, literal life-saving. It was terrifying and amazing. She saved lives. Min-jun was taking them. The irony burned. His phone buzzed at 7 in the morning. Text from Jin-ho. Your father's flight was delayed. He won't land until tomorrow morning. Do you want me to inform him of the situation? Min-jun stared at the message. Part of him wanted to say yes, to let his father take over, to hand this impossible situation to someone with 30 years of experience. The old Min-jun, the one who'd spent his whole life avoiding this world, would have done exactly that. But the old Min-jun had never had Keisha kidnapped, had never felt this particular combination of rage and clarity, had never understood what his father meant when he said some situations demanded you become someone you'd never wanted to be. He texted back, No, I'm handling this. Jin-ho's response came 30 seconds later. Understood. Let me know what you need. Min-jun spent the day preparing. He identified 3 additional Volkov targets, the weapons depot, a high-stakes poker game happening that night in a private club, and a shipping container yard where they stored stolen goods. Each operation had vulnerabilities. Each could be hit with minimal risk to his own people. He called in more men through Jin-ho. By the time evening approached, he had 12 enforcers ready to execute simultaneous strikes if negotiations failed. It was excessive, probably overkill. His father would have called it a waste of resources. But his father's girlfriend wasn't the one in danger. At 7:50 p.m., Min-jun's phone rang. Unknown number again. Speak, he answered. You're very brave for a college boy. Dimitri's voice. Or, very stupid. My people are still debating which. Have you made a decision about Keisha? I've made several decisions. First, about how much I want to kill you personally. Second, about whether your father will go to war with me over this disrespect. Third, about whether one girl is worth the headache you're causing. I'm not interested in your internal deliberations, Dimitri. Is she walking out of your warehouse tonight or not? Hit that subscribe button if you want to see Min-jun's plan work, because what happens next will blow your mind. Dimitri chuckled. You know what I respect? The sheer audacity. You've never been in this life, but you step in like you own it. Very much like your father when he was young. I'm nothing like my father. You keep telling yourself that. Dimitri's tone shifted, becoming businesslike. Here's my counteroffer. You return the product you stole last night, all of it. You make a payment to me of $500,000 for damages and insult. And you personally apologize for declaring war on my organization. Do these 3 things, and the girl goes free. Min-jun had expected this. A predator like Dimitri couldn't just fold completely. He needed to save face, needed to extract something that let him tell his people he'd won concessions. No, Min-jun said simply.
No.
The product I took is compensation for my time and effort. The $500,000 is a fantasy. And I don't apologize for defending what's mine. Min-jun kept his voice level. But I'm willing to make this easier on you. Here's my counteroffer. You release Keisha unharmed at a location of my choosing at midnight tonight. In exchange, I agree to end all hostile actions against your organization effective immediately. You get to tell your people you made the smart tactical decision to de-escalate a conflict that would have cost you millions. I get to tell my people I protected what belongs to me. Everyone wins. Except I've lost face, lost product, lost a distribution hub. Which is still significantly less than you'll lose if this continues. Dimitri, I've been studying your operation all day. Your weapons depot has 6 guards on rotation and a delivery scheduled for Thursday. Your poker game tonight has 18 high-value participants, including 2 city councilmen whose presence you probably don't want made public. Your shipping yard has containers full of stolen electronics that I'm guessing your insurance fraud partners would be very interested to know about. Min-jun let each detail land. I can hit all three simultaneously in the next 4 hours. Is your pride worth that much damage? The silence stretched for nearly 30 seconds. You've been busy, Dmitri finally said. I don't bluff. You have something I want. I'm willing to destroy everything you have to get it back. Simple equation. Your father raised a monster. My father raised a strategist. There's a difference. Min-jun checked his watch. It's 8:05.
I need an answer by 9.
After that, the offer expires and we proceed to mutual destruction. Your choice. And if I agree to your terms? Then you text me an address. I show up with 2 people at midnight. We collect Keisha.
We leave.
This ends. How do I know you won't attack my people during the exchange? Because, unlike you, I don't use civilians as leverage. The moment Keisha is safe, I have no quarrel with you. The moment you targeted her, you made this personal. Return her safely, and it becomes business again. Business we can both walk away from. Dmitri exhaled slowly. You're either the smartest 23-year-old I've ever met or the luckiest. I'll take either. 9 p.m., Dmitri. Clock's ticking. Min-jun hung up and immediately called Jinho. Prepare teams for the 3 targets I sent you. Full assault readiness. If I don't call you by 9:15 to stand down, I want simultaneous strikes at 9:30. You think he'll refuse? I think he's calculating odds right now. If he's smart, he agrees. If he's proud, he refuses. Either way, I need to be ready for both outcomes. And if he agrees, but it's a trap, then Keisha dies, and I spend the rest of my life making sure Dmitri Volkov regrets that choice. Min-jun's voice was cold. But I don't think it's a trap. He's a businessman, not a sadist. He took Keisha for leverage, not because he wanted to hurt her. If I offer him a way out that doesn't make him look weak, he'll take it. You sound very certain of that. I'm not certain of anything, Jinho. But I'm betting everything and that I'm reading him correctly. The wait between 8 and 9 p.m. was the longest hour of Min-jun's life. He stood at his apartment window, staring at the city, thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. Dmitri could refuse and escalate. Dmitri could agree but plan an ambush. Dmitri could have already hurt Keisha in ways that made this entire negotiation meaningless. Min-jun forced those thoughts down. Emotion was the enemy right now. Cold calculation was what would get Keisha home. At 8:56 p.m., his phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Address coming at midnight. You, one other person, both unarmed. My people will search you. Any weapons, any tricks, the deal is off. Min-jun showed the text to Tae-sung, who'd stayed with him. Thoughts. Could still be a trap. But probably isn't. He's setting terms that protect him while giving me what I want. That's negotiation, not setup.
Tae-sung nodded slowly.
So, we're doing this? We're doing this.
Call Jinho.
Stand down the assault teams. Tell them to stay on standby in case this goes wrong, but the primary operation is off. At 11:45, another text arrived with an address. Industrial area near the port of Los Angeles. Isolated, easy to contain if things went bad. Smart location for an exchange. Min-jun and Tae-sung drove there in silence. Min-jun had left the Glock at his apartment, carrying only his phone and the knife strapped to his ankle, small enough the Volkov people might miss it in a search, useful enough if everything went to hell. The location was a warehouse near the water, container ships visible in the distance, their lights reflecting off dark water. 4 men waited outside, all armed, all watching Min-jun's vehicle approach with the kind of tension that preceded violence. Remember, Tae-sung said quietly. If shooting starts, you run for Keisha. I'll cover you. If shooting starts, we're both probably dead. Then let's try not to start any shooting. They exited the vehicle with their hands visible. 2 of the Volkov enforcers approached, patting them down with professional efficiency. They found Tae-sung's phone and Min-jun's knife, confiscated both. Inside, one of them said in heavily accented English. The warehouse was mostly empty, Just stacks of pallets and a few containers. Dmitry Volkov stood in the center, flanked by 6 more armed men. He was older than Min-jun expected, late 50s, gray hair, expensive suit that looked out of place in this industrial setting. He studied Min-jun with the kind of assessment that came from decades of reading people. "So you're the Park heir everyone says wants nothing to do with the family business," Dmitry said. "Where's Keisha?" Dmitry gestured. One of his men opened a container. Keisha stumbled out, hands bound in front of her, eyes wide with fear that transformed to shock when she saw Min-jun. She had a bruise on her cheek, her clothes were dirty, but she appeared otherwise unharmed. Relief flooded through Min-jun so intensely, he nearly staggered. He forced it down, kept his expression neutral. "Release her."
Continue.
5:30, 4 p.m. A moment. "First we talk." Dmitry walked closer. "I want you to understand something. I'm not releasing her because you scared me. I'm releasing her because I'm practical. You destroyed one operation, stole some product, annoying but manageable. Continuing this conflict would cost both our organizations resources neither of us can spare. So I'm making the smart choice. But don't mistake practicality for weakness." "I don't mistake anything," Min-jun said. "I just want her back." "You're willing to do terrible things for her. I respect that. It's the mark of a man who understands what matters." Dmitry nodded to his enforcer, who cut Keisha's bonds. She ran to Min-jun immediately, and he caught her, wrapping one arm around her while keeping his eyes on Dmitry and his men. She was shaking, face pressed against his chest, breathing in ragged gasps that suggested she'd been terrified for every second of the past 30 hours. "I've got you," Min-jun whispered. "You're safe now." "Our business is concluded," Dmitry said. "But tell your father something for me when he returns. Tell him his son is more dangerous than he realizes. And tell him that the next time the Park family takes something from me, I won't be so willing to negotiate. I'll pass that along. One more thing." Dmitry's expression hardened. "You killed 2 of my men last night. That debt doesn't disappear just because we're ending this peacefully. Your men were armed guards at an illegal operation. They knew the risks."
True.
"But debts still exist. Someday, when enough time has passed, I'll collect. Maybe not from you. Maybe not even from your father. But the debt remains." Min-jun met his gaze. "I'll look forward to that conversation." They left the warehouse without incident. Keisha didn't let go of him until they were in the vehicle, doors locked, Taesung driving them away from the port area. Then she pulled back, staring at him with eyes that held questions he wasn't ready to answer. The rescue was over, but the real reckoning was just beginning. Drop a comment below telling me what you think Keisha should do. Stay with the man who saved her but became a killer doing it, or walk away from the darkness before it consumes them both. Your answer might surprise you. Part 2 is coming, and trust me, you won't want to miss what happens when Min-jun's father finds out what his son is truly capable of. "What did you do?" she whispered. "What I had to. They said you attacked them. They said you burned down a building, stole from them, threatened to destroy their entire organization." Her voice was shaking. "They said you moved like someone who'd done this before." Min-jun was quiet for a long moment. "I had training. I never wanted to use it. But when they took you, I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. Not this time. Not for this." He looked at her. "I'm sorry you had to see this part of my world. I spent my whole life trying to keep you away from it. But it followed us anyway. It always does. That's what I've been trying to tell you." Min-jun's voice was hollow. "You can't date the Mafia prince and expect a normal life. Eventually, my world comes for yours." Keisha was crying now, silent tears tracking down her cheeks. "I just wanted to study for my biochem exam. I was thinking about what to get you for your birthday next month. And then men with guns grabbed me from the parking lot. They put a bag over my head. They locked me in a container and told me they were going to cut off my fingers if your father didn't give them drugs. I know. I'm so sorry. Sorry doesn't fix this. Sorry doesn't change what I saw tonight." She gestured toward the warehouse, toward Dmitry and his armed men. "Those people were terrified of you. Actual Russian gangsters were negotiating with you like you were one of them. I am one of them. That's what I've been trying to deny my whole life. But blood doesn't lie, Keisha. I'm Min-jun Park's son. When push came to shove, I became exactly what he trained me to be. They rode in silence for the rest of the drive. Taesung dropped them at Min-jun's apartment, and Keisha went straight to the bathroom without a word. Min-jun heard the shower running and knew she was washing away 30 hours of captivity, trying to feel clean again. His phone buzzed. Text from Jinho. Your father's flight lands in 6 hours. What do you want me to tell him? Min-jun typed back. Everything.
He'll find out anyway.
Might as well hear it from us first. He poured himself water, not alcohol, never alcohol, because Keisha had taught him better, and waited for her to emerge from the bathroom. When she finally did, wearing one of his shirts, hair still damp, she looked smaller somehow. Younger. Broken in a way that made rage burn through him all over again. Are we going to be okay? She asked quietly. I don't know. That's not the answer I wanted. It's the only honest one I have. Min-jun set down the glass. You saw what I can become. You saw what I'm capable of when someone threatens what's mine. I can't unsee that. You can't unsee that. They said your father would be proud of you. The men holding me, they said Min-jun Park raised his heir well, and that you'd show everyone soon enough. They weren't wrong. That terrifies me. It should. Min-jun walked to the window, stared at the city lights. I spent 23 years running from this. One phone call brought me back. What does that say about who I really am? Keisha came to stand beside him. It says you love me enough to do terrible things. I don't know if that's beautiful or horrifying. Can it be both? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. You said that same thing to someone tonight, didn't you? I heard you on the phone earlier. Can't it be both? Old habits. New habits too. She took his hand. I need time to process this. I need to figure out if I can love someone who's capable of what you did tonight. That's fair. But I also need you to understand something. Keisha turned to face him. Those men kidnapped me. They terrorized me. They threatened to torture me.
And you saved me.
However you did it, whatever darkness you tapped into, you brought me home. I'm standing here because of you. So thank you. And also, I'm terrified of you. Both things are true. They stood together in silence, watching the city, neither knowing what came next. Min-jun's phone buzzed with another message from Jinho, but he ignored it. Right now, this moment with Keisha mattered more than his father's incoming rage, more than the Volkov Bratva's future retaliation, more than anything else in his complicated world. What happens when your father lands? Keisha finally asked. I don't know. He'll either be furious that I acted without permission, or impressed that I handled it successfully. With him, it's hard to predict. And the Russians? Dmitri said the debt doesn't disappear. Someday they'll collect. But not today. Not this week. Maybe not even this year. In our world, sometimes peace is just violence waiting for a better opportunity. That's a horrible way to live. I know. Keisha squeezed his hand. I need to go home. To my apartment. To my roommates and my textbooks and my normal life. I need to pretend for a little while that none of this happened. I'll have someone drive you.
No.
She pulled away. I'll take an Uber. I need space from all of this.
From you.
From your world. Just for a day or two. Keisha. Please. Her eyes were pleading. Let me have this. Let me process what happened before your father comes back and everything gets even more complicated. Min-jun wanted to argue, wanted to insist she stay where he could protect her, wanted to promise that his world would never touch her again. But they both knew those would be lies. Text me when you get home, he said quietly. Please. She kissed his cheek, a gesture that felt both intimate and distant, and left his apartment without another word. Min-jun stood alone in his $12 million penthouse, surrounded by luxury purchased with blood money, and wondered what it meant that he'd saved the person he loved by becoming the thing he'd spent his whole life trying to avoid.
His phone rang. His father.
Min-jun stared at the screen, watching it ring once, Twice, 3 times. On the 4th ring, he answered. I'm back early, Min-jun Park said. Jin-ho briefed me on everything. We need to talk.
Now.
I'll be here. You better be. And Min-jun? What you did last night. We have a lot to discuss about that. The line went dead. Min-jun poured himself another glass of water and waited for his father to arrive, knowing that everything had changed, knowing that he couldn't go back to being the reluctant heir who wanted nothing to do with the family business. The door opened 30 minutes later. Min-jun Park walked in, still wearing his travel clothes, looking tired but alert. Jin-ho followed him, closing the door behind them. Min-jun's father studied him for a long moment. You attacked a rival organization without authorization. I saved Keisha. You started a war. I ended a conflict before it could escalate. Dmitri agreed to peace. Dmitri agreed to temporary peace. You think this is over? You think he'll forget you destroyed his property, killed his men, took his product? Dae-young walked to the window, looked out at the city. You gave him reasons to hate us beyond the normal business rivalries. You made it personal. He made it personal when he kidnapped Keisha. And now you've guaranteed he'll try again. Maybe not tomorrow. Maybe not next year. But someday, when you've let your guard down, when you think you're safe, that's when he'll strike. Because that's what I would do. Dae-young turned back to face him. You've learned strategy, Min-jun. But you haven't learned patience. I didn't have time for patience. They gave me 3 days before they started cutting pieces off her. I would have handled it. You were in Korea. I could have come back immediately. You could have called me, briefed me on the situation, let me make the tactical decisions. Instead, you went rogue, acted like you had authority you haven't earned, and exposed yourself as a capable operator, which means now our enemies know you're not just the soft son who wants nothing to do with the business. You've painted a target on yourself. Min-jun met his father's eyes.
Good.
Let them come. Let them see what happens when they threaten what's mine. Something shifted in Dae-young's expression, not anger, exactly, but recognition. You sound like me at your age. You've been telling me that's what you wanted since I was 8 years old. What I wanted was for you to choose it, to understand it, not to be forced into it because I wasn't there when you needed me. His father's voice softened slightly. I failed you. I should have anticipated this threat. I should have had better protection for Keisha. I should have been here. Min-jun hadn't expected that. His father never apologized, never admitted failure. What's done is done, Min-jun said quietly. Keisha is safe. The Volkov Bratva knows we're not easy targets. And I proved I can operate in this world even if I don't want to. Can you though? One successful operation doesn't make you ready for leadership. Dae-young gestured at the city. This empire took me 30 years to build. It's held together by relationships, by reputation, by knowing when to push and when to pull back. You pushed hard and fast. It worked this time, but what about next time? What about when the stakes are higher, the enemy more dangerous, the consequences more permanent? Then I'll adapt. That's what you trained me to do. I trained you in tactics. I didn't train you in the cost of this life. His father's expression was grave. You killed 2 men last night. Does that weigh on you? Min-jun thought about the bodies falling in the warehouse, the sounds they'd made, the way their blood had looked on the concrete floor. Yes. Good. The day it stops weighing on you is the day you become a monster. And if I'm already becoming one? Then you fight it every day. You remember why you're doing this, not for power, not for money, but for the people who matter. For Keisha. For whatever family you might have someday. For the future you want to build. Dae-young walked closer. I became a monster, so you wouldn't have to. But if you're going to operate in this world anyway, if you've discovered you have the capability and the will to do what needs to be done, then at least do it for the right reasons. Min-jun was quiet for a long moment. What happens now? Now we prepare. Dmitri will retaliate eventually. The question is when and how. We need better intelligence on his organization. We need to shore up our defenses. We need to make sure anyone who thinks about targeting us knows the cost. Dae-young paused. And we need to decide what role you're going to play going forward. What do you mean? You can't go back to pretending this world doesn't exist. Not after this. You've shown our people you can lead, shown our enemies you're dangerous, shown yourself what you're capable of. The only question is whether you embrace it or spend the rest of your life fighting against your own nature. That's not a choice. That's a trap. No, that's reality. You are my son. This is your inheritance whether you want it or not. The only variable is whether you take control of it or let it control you. Jin-ho, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. The men are asking about you. They want to know if you're going to be active in operations. Min-jun looked at him. What did you tell them? That it's not my decision to make. But for what it's worth, they were impressed. You planned and executed a successful op with minimal resources and no experience. That's rare. It was desperation, not skill. Desperation reveals skill, Dae-young said. Anyone can follow orders. Leaders act when there's no one to give them orders.
Min-jun's phone buzzed.
Text from Keisha. Home safe. Need time.
Don't call me.
I'll reach out when I'm ready. He showed it to his father. Dae-young read it and nodded. She's processing. Give her space. And if she decides she can't be with someone like me, then you let her go. This life destroys more relationships than it creates. His father's voice was heavy with experience. Your mother left because of this. I don't blame her. But if Keisha chooses to stay, knowing what you are and what you can become, then you fight every day to deserve that choice. Min-jun set down his phone. What's the next move? For you? Go back to school. Finish your semester. Keep being the college student everyone thinks you are. I'll handle the Volkov situation, shore up our defenses, make sure Dmitri understands that peace is his only viable option. And then we see if he's smart enough to take it. Dae-young moved toward the door. Get some rest. You've had a long 36 hours. After they left, Min-jun stood alone again, this time feeling the weight of everything that had happened. He'd killed 2 people. He'd threatened a Mafia boss. He'd orchestrated operations that his father's men had followed without question. And somewhere in all of that, he discovered he was good at it. Maybe even exceptional at it. That realization should have horrified him. Instead, it just felt like inevitability. His phone buzzed one more time. Unknown number. Text message. Your father thinks this is over. It's not. Tell him Dmitri Volkov remembers everything. Min-jun stared at the message, then deleted it. He'd expected this. Dmitri had agreed to peace, but peace in this world was just violence waiting for a better moment. The question was whether Min-jun would be ready when that moment came. He looked out at the city lights, at Los Angeles spreading toward the Pacific, at the empire his father had built, and the one he'd apparently inherited despite everything he'd tried to do to avoid it. Somewhere out there, Keisha was trying to process what kind of person he really was. Somewhere out there, Dmitri Volkov was planning his revenge. Somewhere out there, enemies were taking notice of the Park heir who'd finally shown his teeth. Min-jun should have been terrified. Instead, he felt calm.
Clear.
Ready. His phone rang again. This time it was Tae-sung. What?
Min-jun answered.
We have a problem. One of Dimitri's properties just burned down. Not us, we didn't touch it. But someone did. And they left a message in Russian. Jin-ho's people are translating it now, but initial reports say it's a threat. Against both organizations. Min-jun closed his eyes. Someone else is making moves. Looks like it. Your father wants you at the office in an hour. Says we need to figure out who's trying to start a war between us and the Volkov Bratva. I'll be there. Min-jun hung up and grabbed his jacket. So much for peace. So much for going back to normal life. The game had just gotten more complicated. And despite everything, despite Keisha being traumatized, despite having blood on his hands, despite knowing he was walking further into the darkness his father had spent 30 years building, Min-jun felt something he'd never experienced before. He felt alive. Subscribe for part 2.